Hey guys, if you're pumped off the wall or just need a cool down sequence, this is a great sequence for you to do after you rock climb. Most of us know forearm extension, but if you walk your forearm extension, it actually makes it a little bit more active. I also end up just sitting into that forearm extension and then kind of going into a circle. If you're on the wall and you need to go between climbs, you can do the walk, which is a really nice way to de-pump yourself. But if you're done with your climb, it's totally fine for you to just hold and just hold that for about 30 seconds. And I like to do circles. Next, we're gonna switch to our external rotation of our wrists. So this is a pretty funky one. You're gonna feel it here. Again, you can either go rock back and forward, or you can even do a circle in this particular motion as well. I find this one to be really good after I do crack climbing, but also in general, this is probably one of the more under stretched muscles that we have in our climbing. Next, we can even flip our hands forward. This one's not as much of a stretch for rock climbers that feel like they need a de-pumper, but I just find making sure that we stretch in all directions. Now we're going right back into, with your hands facing towards you, we're gonna have elbow pits facing forward, right? If you just let your elbow pits go relax, you're not gonna actually feel the stretch. But if you're actually rotating your elbow pits forward, you're gonna get this stretch a lot better. Next, we're gonna go into our eagle stretch. This one's one that I've had a pretty hard time with. In our eagle stretch, you're gonna wrap your outside arm is your right hand first, and we're gonna hold that for 30 seconds. You know, this is a good one that you use in yoga, and I really like this particular stretch in yoga, but what I've found is that in rock climbing, I'm really feeling this particular stretch because it gets between those shoulder blades, as you probably feel a little bit of a knot when you're rock climbing. Switch sides, now your left arm over your right. And the same thing, we're getting between the shoulder blades. If you want to reach up in this stretch, you're gonna get a much bigger activation between your shoulder blades. If you reach down, you're also gonna get an activation between your shoulder blades as well. It really kind of like experiment with these. Any of these stretches, you can just experiment with and try to just work through. And you're trying to hold each of these for 30 seconds, and I'm trying to be good about staying in that 30 seconds so that you can use this as a follow along program. Thread the needle. This is one of my favorites. So reaching your arms out forward, you're gonna reach your bottom arm through your body. And as you reach that arm out, you wanna pull your arm as far in that direction as possible. And I like to take the top arm and push. Rotate and switch sides. Same thing, we're trying to reach this arm as far as possible. So make that top arm a push. When you use your top arm to push, you're gonna get a lot more intense stretch between your shoulder blades. Unwind yourself. So each of these we're holding for about 30 seconds. Give yourself a little second to shake out. Your chest scorpion, you might not have been using your chest so much in your climb, but it's also really just a nice chest opener and also a rotation in your shoulder. We're gonna go here with bent elbow, and we're gonna reach back. And don't worry about touching your foot onto the ground. That's totally fine. You don't need to touch your foot to the ground. You just want to reach. The whole design of this is to open up your chest, and you should actually get a little bit of an opening in your iliac crest as well, or iliac crest, your sacroiliac joint as well. 3, 2, 1, and switch sides. You can do this move with straight arms as well. If you do this with straight arms, you're gonna open up your pec minor a bit more, and you're also gonna get that sacroiliac joint release. Now switching gears, we're gonna do our hip stretch. This is a half squat hip stretch. All I'm doing is pushing my hip open. I personally like this stretch. This is one of the ones I like to do every day because my hips are not as open as I'd like them to be. And it's never a bad idea to actually pump a little bit, not bounce. There's a very big difference between bounce. We're trying to reach the end range and go deeper in, and then come back out and then reach into deeper range. Open up those hips. What ends up happening when you're rock climbing? You're trying to get your hip, your foot all the way up here. So this is a great one to continue to work on your hip mobility while you're on the wall, or while you're off the wall rather. Now I have all these holds for 30 seconds, but if you're chilling by the TV, doing this on your own, you can do these holds for a minute. That's totally fine. Or you can pump, as I've said before. A lot of us know this kneeling quad stretch. We're gonna come into this kind of lunge position, grab our back foot, and if you can, I want you to grab, whoop, to practice. Grab your back foot with both arms, balancing. This is a hard one to balance, right? But it's one that I really like. This is where they say anger is stored in yoga. And I actually would agree. When you're in a quad stretch like this, it's kind of hard to not feel angry. Pull as you push and switch sides. It's easier to grab the opposite foot first before you grab both. And no shame, if you need to, a regression for this stretch is to put your hand down as you reach for that back foot. And you can always put a block down if you need it. I particularly like this one because you get a little bit of an extra shoulder stretch, pulling your arms behind you. Next up, we're gonna try to do our 90-90 hip stretch, kind of giving yourself that 90-90. And it's really hard to do this for us with tight hips. For those of you that loose hips, good for you. I want you to work on controlling and trying to hold and lower yourself in those positions. So I'm trying to actually lower, and you can tell my right hip is far tighter than my left hip when I switch sides. So we're just trying to straighten your torso and reach down. And it's okay if you need a little help from whatever side you need. You have this hip that's externally rotated and this hip that's internally rotated. So you're getting both hips open when you're doing this 90-90 stretch. That's why I like the 90-90 stretch so much. Switching sides. And my left side, I don't actually need any support. You're gonna find that you have one side that's better. That's totally fine. if you can pull yourself towards the ground, that's a really great way to kind of get that extra activation. And then if you want another extra activation, you push down, and then 3, 2, 1, and then pull yourself deeper. That's a PNF style stretch, or a pails and rails style stretch. I am very tight in my hamstrings. You know, you're gonna see my low back compensate a little bit, that's fine. You can bend your knees a little bit. What we were trying to do when we're reaching for our toes, right? This is like such a traditional kind of exercise, but we're trying to reach for our toes, and we're trying to push our toes down as we keep our back as flat as possible, right? This is our hamstring stretch. There's so many more stretches to do, but this is a quick 10-minute cool down for you. And I'm pulling my belly button in towards my spine as I reach forward, trying to flatten my back. It might not seem like my back is that flat, but I'm doing what I can. We're gonna do a child's pose with open fingers. I like this one in specific because my shoulders are pretty tight. And we're trying to straighten your elbows and reach your arms forward as you sit your butt down. You're getting a little bit of a quad stretch here, as well as getting your shoulders open. If you're on the wall and you have, you know, a hypomobile shoulder, not everybody does, this is gonna be a really great stretch for you. If you're not hypomobile, or your shoulders are quite flexible, I recommend getting a box for this particular stretch, because then you have a little bit more distance to go. So that way we can stretch out the shoulder ligamentous tissue and stretch out your shoulder joint altogether. Again, pressing your elbows as straight as possible and reaching down towards the ground.
Hopefully you take this cool down to your next climbing session. I'll be doing more warm-ups and cool downs as these go on, and consider joining one of my programs, which will have a much more in-depth version of each of these warm-ups and cool downs. I'm not the most flexible person. I'm actually hypo-mobile, and something that you're gonna see with people that are, you know, when you're looking on the internet, the people that are hypo-mobile are usually the ones doing all the strength exercises, and the people that are hyper-mobile are doing all the yoga type exercises. So if you see someone like me who's hypo-mobile and actually trying to do the stretches, you'll see that like it's actually a lot more work for somebody like me than it is for somebody that, you know, can already put their leg behind their head. People have different degrees of flexibility, and I do assessments of flexibility in my programs as well. Leave a comment down below and let me know which ones of these are helpful for you and which one you use. It's really nice to get that feedback from you all, so I know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, what I could work on. That way I can continue to make these programs for you.